Welcome to the Science Fair Computer Workshop Part 2, Learn to Create Eye-Catching Projects, presented by Librarian Senior Salena at the Broward County Main Library. Class Objective and Overview. Learn to create eye-catching science fair projects with Microsoft PowerPoint, best for children and teens ages 7 to 16 years of age. Parents and caregivers are welcome to participate. In Part 1 of the Science Fair workshop, we learned about the criteria that judges use when evaluating your project and reviewed some examples. During Part 2 of the Science Fair Computer Workshop, we will show you how to create the Science Fair project utilizing Microsoft PowerPoint software. So of course, you want to open up Microsoft PowerPoint. Sometimes it's an icon on your desktop and you would just double click on that icon. If you don't find the PowerPoint icon on your desktop, then you would go to the Start menu and look through there. On this computer, it's under P for PowerPoint. So I'd click there and then would open up PowerPoint. And what you would want to do is you would go into the new area and select one of your templates or design themes. So you can even go to the Design tab. But I like to do this part in the beginning because if you don't, you might run into some formatting issues with the text and the pictures later. You'll notice this template automatically has a bunch of slides already added, but if I ever needed to add a slide, I would just go to the Home ribbon here and I can select New Slide. In this case, I wanted to mention about changing the slide size. This slide size is pretty big if you were going to go and print these slides. So if you ever wanted to print these slides, you might want to consider going to the Design tab, and then you'll see here in the far right side of the menu, there's a slide size, and you could change it to standard, which is the 4:3. Right now, I have it set on widescreen, but if you wanted to print this PowerPoint in the future, you would probably want to select standard. It's kind of a matter of how many, what size paper you have to work with. Once you've selected your theme or design, you would want to go ahead and save it. I typically recommend going to Browse and selecting your different sources. So you'll see here I have different drives, but oftentimes on your home computer you would just save it in the Documents folder. And I'm just going to go ahead and rename the file, Science Fair Project, and save it in my Documents folder. But under this PC area, if you have a flash drive, you could save it in there. So you would just go File, Save As, Browse, and then you'll see here there's a menu here. And if you had a flash drive, when you go to this PC, it would show up here, and then you would select that device and hit Save. So since our project is about growing lima beans, so I'm highlighting this, and right now I'm on page 2 of the directions, light and lima beans. Now I want to add a picture to this document, and I notice the text is super big. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight it and go back to Home, and you'll see here in the font group there's an option here. The small a allows you to adjust the size, and then I'm also going to just adjust the text box I'm going to adjust the text box a little bit here, and then I'm going to add my name here. Now in real life I would put my full name, and if this is a group project, you definitely want to make sure to include the names of your team members if this is a group project. And then I'm going to go here to insert online pictures, and in the Bing image search I'm going to go ahead and type in lima bean. And you'll see here they have this copyright responsibility, so just keep in mind that some of these images are copyrighted. You'll see that I have the Creative Commons only checked, so that limits it to images that have less restrictive licensing agreements. So you may or may not be violating copyright, but just make sure you cite your sources in your citation or reference page. And I'm going to go ahead and select this image here because it shows lima bean plants growing. And I'm going to select insert. And you'll see this image is a little too small. So if I click in the middle here, if I go to the edge, I can adjust the size. So you see how when I put my cursor, my mouse cursor, on the edge of the image, that I get a double-sided white arrow. If I left click and drag that in in either direction, I can make it larger or smaller. And you'll see I can also adjust the size of the text box and make them bigger as well. Now I actually didn't have to insert any slides, but just in case, remember if you ever need to insert a slide, I would select the title slide here and then I could go new slide, title and content, or whatever slide style I wanted. So here on slide 2, I would type statement of purpose, which is one of the categories you need to consider in your science fair project. And I have an example purpose statement. So I'm going to type that out. And this information is on page 3 of the Science Fair Community Workshop Learn to Create Eye-Catching Projects lesson plan. So I'm going to finish writing. The purpose of this experiment is to see what effect natural and unnatural light has on a lima bean as it grows into a plant. Now, if you were doing a real science fair project, you of course would have a different statement based on whatever your project is. But this is an example of a generic kind of purpose statement. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert another slide. Now you'll see this template has a bunch of stuff here, so I can always delete these slides I don't need. So if you ever wanted to delete a slide, you could right click and delete slide, right click, delete slide, if you ever need to do that. Right now I'm going to work on the hypothesis slide. Oh, hypothesis, here we go. Okay, let me double check that spelling. Let's see if the spell check works. Nope, the spell check, oh, there it is. So you'll see when you see a red underline like that, that means that you have some kind of spelling, possible grammar error. Usually it's a spelling error. You could go and fix that. So when that happens, you can right click and then it's going to recommend some stuff. So if one of these applies, and this one does, I would select that. So my hypothesis is that lima bean plants that receive natural sunlight will grow to be the tallest plants. And you'll see I accidentally had a typo in tallest. I right click and then spell check recommends the correct spelling. I'm going to go ahead and delete this slide because it's actually, let's see if it lets me do control key. Oh, it's letting me delete several slides. Yay. Okay, because I don't really need those slides. And I'm going to go ahead and do a new slide underneath hypothesis. And the next slide is going to be research. I don't have time to put a bunch of research information here, but this is where you would put like whatever resources, because typically teacher is going to require you to have several sources. So this is where you could maybe take quotes or statements or summaries from the research resources that you've used for the project. I'm going to go ahead and do a new slide and select materials. And then this is where you would list the materials that you used. So the bullets come in a lot of handy. So I could say, 3 lima beans 3 toilet paper rolls or plant or pots to grow the plant in. Oops, actually I need 3. So the list of materials is on the handout. And the material list is going to vary from project to project. And then remember, you can expand the size of this text box to make it bigger. If you needed to, you could highlight the text, make it a little bit smaller so you could fit more stuff. And then you can even adjust the line spacing. So if you needed to have closer line spacing so you could fit more items. So I'm not going to list the entire materials list, but you kind of get the general idea. It's a bulleted list of the materials that you use for the experiment. Of course, you're going to need, water, and tap water is fine because we're not doing any water experiments. And of course, you need a teaspoon to measure the water. Make sure that you're giving all the plants the same amount of water. Since ours deals with light bulbs, I would want to list, the different types of light bulbs that I'm using for the scientific experiment. And I'm going to go ahead and insert new slide. And then this is the slide for procedures. And this slide could be very long, and a lot of text is going to happen in this slide. You're going to have a lot of sentences. So you may need to use 2 slides to get all the content on there. And then you'll see I had another typo, so just right click to do the spell check. And then I would just list all the procedures. As I was saying, this is just an example, so I want to get to the good stuff, which is I would probably do, I could do a second slide for procedures if I had a lot of procedures to report. And I'll go ahead and delete this one. Oops. Okay, there we are. So this is the fun part where we're going to insert a table. So I'm going to go ahead and do a title like lima bean plant growth or something like that. And then this is where I'm going to insert a nice little table. So you'll see here, there's an insert table icon here in the middle of the slide. So you could use that one, or you could go here to the insert tab and insert table that way. But I'm going to go ahead and use this one, and I'm going to enter the number of columns. So I'm going to have 4 columns and 5 rows. Of course, this is going to vary from project to project depending on how many plants or items are being tested. So I'm going to go ahead and call this category plant lighting. And if you need ideas, please make sure to borrow one of our science fair project books. We have a lot of science fair project books, especially physical ones. There are a few ebooks, but most of the science fair books are physical that we have. And then I'm going to have the timetable. So I have week 1. And I'm going to say sunlight. So this is the growth of the plant. And this is the amount of centimeters the plant grew. So the plant, for example, during week 1, the plant that received natural sunlight grew 2 centimeters. The one that had the lead light bulb grew 1.5 centimeters, and the one with the special lead grow light bulb with special lighting grew 1.75 centimeters. So you may need to add centimeters in there. If you would like to, you could add the centimeters if you think that it's needed. And then week 2, you know, just a matter of what your teacher wants and what you think might work well. And then I'm going to go ahead and enter the rest of the data. So this table is on page 4 of the handout. So it may be beneficial to complete this part of the project, to listen to this video once you have the lesson plan in front of you and you can refer to it. And actually I have a copy here. Let me grab it real quick. So here is the power of the presentation handout. And you'll see here is the actual information. So I'm going to go here to PowerPoint and paste that information. Now I forgot to put a total, but I don't think we really need a total. And you'll see the font here is a little bit small, so I'm going to go ahead and make it larger. Let's see, that's okay. So I'm going to have it kind of match the gills because that's the font. Okay, there it is. So you see, I figured out the font style is Gills Sans MT. So when I highlighted it, I just made sure to find it in the menu and I started typing the Gills Sans and then it came up. I'm going to go ahead and make it, oh, it added the heading. I don't want the heading. So, what was it? Okay, here, Gills Sans. Oh, it's the bold one. I don't want the bold. Oh, here it is. Yay. Not bold. Less bold. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert. I'm going to change this to Lima Bean growth chart. Then I'm going to go ahead and insert a new slide. And this is going to be Lima Bean bar graph. And you'll see here that we have several different styles to choose from. So I'm going to go here to the line graph. And I kind of like this simple basic style. So I'm going to select that and hit OK. And you'll see an Excel spreadsheet opens up. So what I can do actually is I could copy this information I had already entered and I could paste it into that. And then there it is. There's the information. Of course, you know, the text is a little bit bigger, so I would want to, you know, maybe expand it a little bit. But you can do the copy and paste. So for those who aren't familiar with copy and paste, and then there it is. So you'll see here it shows that the plant that received natural sunlight grew taller than the other plants that used the other types of lighting. So just to review copy and paste, as I know I didn't really go to it. So anytime you need to edit your stuff here, if you right click on the line, you can do format data series. Oh, not the format data series. That's not the right one. I could edit data. Oh, okay, edit data. And then you'll see the Excel spreadsheet pops up. So I know I had already entered all this information on the previous slide, slide 7 here. And I want to have to enter it again. So what I did is I highlighted the relevant information. You can do right click copy, or you can use the Control-C key on your keyboard. And then I highlighted this, and then you could do, you know, paste, right click, paste, but you'll notice that I highlighted just certain cells in the table. I didn't highlight the whole thing. And then there it is, and then it updated the chart. So if I go here and I change something, you'll see automatically, see how that changed? Like here, it was originally 5, but I'm going to go ahead and just add a 9 just so you can see it, and see the chart automatically changes. So it's very important that you input the information correctly into this chart. And this slide is the conclusion slide. And then I would click here. Well, anyway, I'm not going to do the whole conclusion sentence. And then, of course, I need to put my bibliography or works cited. Just make sure you double check your teacher's instructions about that, about what citation style they want you to use. So I'm just going to write one of my sources here, just as an example. So this is actually a science fair book that we have in one of the libraries. You can always request it to be sent to your home library. But it's very good to cite your sources. Just double check with your teacher what format they want to use. This is an example of MLA format, but your teacher may want APA or Chicago or something else. So double check that. You could always visit the Citation Machine, or in this case, I'm visiting the Purdue University, and you'll see they have some of the major citation styles. So if your teacher wanted you to do MLA or APA or whatever style, you would select it, and then they can give you nice examples. And explain the formatting and give examples. So Purdue University has a very good citation website. So even if you're not a student with that university, it doesn't matter. You can take advantage of their really great website. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the link here to discuss the Citation Machine. So they have a free account, and then they have a 3-day free upgrade. So you can try using the free account. And then it asks you what source you're using. So, you want to pick whatever form matches. In this case, actually, let me see. I'll go to website because that's probably most of you are going to use web resources. So let's say I wanted to cite this resource. I'm going to go ahead and just say enter my information manually. So I'm going to do the URL here, today's date that I accessed it, and then the year that I accessed it. Let's see if I can find any publication information here. Oh goodness, I got a nice little advertisement there. You'll see there's not really any dates on here. But my guess is it's probably been updated pretty recently. So just to avoid confusion, I'm going to just put in the year that was electronically published. I believe it was 2020. Unfortunately, the author I'm maybe going to go, I'm sure there's a lot. I'm going to say editor instead of author. And the title of my webpage here is MLA. I'm going to right click on that and copy that. And then I'm going to right click and paste. And then for the last name is where I'm going to put the Purdue University online writing lab or something, because that's actually an organization. So I'm just going to put that as the last name and leave first name blank. If it lets me, let's see if it lets me. Complete citation. Nope. Okay. So that citation's pretty good. And then I could copy that citation, and then I could paste it into my presentation. So I'm going to go to the bibliography area, and I'm going to... And see how I did the last clipboard? That gets rid of weird formatting. And then you'll see here, and I can make this bigger and adjust the size of this text box. And there's my source. I cited my source in relatively accurate MLA format. So I recommend doing the manual entry if you're going to use the citation machine. And unfortunately, there is a large amount of advertising, so that's the downside. And both of them actually have advertising, but my citation machine seems to have more active advertising with video and sound. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And don't forget, if you can't find everything you need through the library, there's this really great website called Science Buddies. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that and go. So here's Science Buddies, and they kind of give you ideas for science projects. So they have science kits, science videos, and then they also have grade level information. So of course you would probably want to, pick what your grade level is. I'm just going to say 8th grade. And then it kind of recommends projects appropriate for that grade level. And unfortunately there is some advertising, but it gives you some ideas here of projects you can try. And it gives you a nice little summary, how much the materials cost, and an abstract, objectives, how to cite this website actually. So that's really nice. You have a nice MLA and APA citation here if you need to cite the source. And then it gives you a nice introduction and background, and sometimes it even has a video tutorial. And then it has a list of suggested materials, a list of suggested procedures. Of course, you don't want to copy and paste all this into your project, because you would be plagiarizing and would probably get in trouble for that. So you would use this for informational research purposes, but then you need to customize it to your specific science project. You can't just copy and paste all their words word for word, because that would be called plagiarism, and you would probably get an F on your science fair project. So make sure that you can watch the videos and use this as an example, but you need to write up your own procedures, your own materials, and your own hypothesis. You can't just copy and paste everything into your PowerPoint and then try to pass this off as your work, because you are going to get an F if you do that. You don't want to be accused of plagiarism. But as I was saying, this gives you an idea of projects so that you can come up and think of your own project, or you can use one of their projects and customize it to meet your needs and your supplies that you have. The other resources, of course, is the Florida Electronic Library. So if you're a resident in the state of Florida, it should automatically detect that you're in the state of Florida, but if it doesn't, you'll see here it automatically has Broward County Library Division. But, you know, you can always go here and change your library and enter your information there. And then you'll see they have subjects and grade levels. So if I go to subjects, I can select science, and then it gives me some science databases. So I would say probably most of these science databases are probably more for middle school, high school students or advanced elementary students. But you can also go back and do grade level. So I'm going to go ahead and select grade level. Oop, did it work? Okay, good. I'm waiting for it to load. So if you're in elementary school, you could try Florida Kids or Elementary Database from Gale. And then look at that. They have technology, science, and plants. So you could go here to science, and let's say you're doing something about the environment, or doing something about space, or physical science. You could do research on those topics. And then they give you like nice images, and you can copy and paste those and cite those sources if you're going to use these images. So remember, when you're using images from the internet or any online source like this database here, you want to make sure you cite your sources. So what's really nice is these Gale databases oftentimes allow you to easily cite your sources. So if you wanted to use this picture for your project, you could select MLA or APA or Chicago, and then you would just, you know, highlight it. No, I don't want to do select all. Sorry. You would highlight it and do copy, and then you could go to your PowerPoint here and do your paste option. And honestly, with references, I don't include bullets. So I would highlight this, and then you'll see the bullet button. I can do none, and that gets rid of the bullets. So typically in your citation page, you don't want bullets. And then I'm going to go ahead here, and I can delete these extra slides that I don't need. Now when it comes to print view, let's talk about the view of slides. So you'll see there's a view tab here right now. We're in normal view, and that's where you can, you know, edit stuff. Oops, I meant to delete that actually. And I can actually highlight it and use the delete key too. So there it is, my kind of example PowerPoint here. Outline view kind of shows an outline here, and then there's an area for you to add notes if you're going to present this. Then the slide sorter is really good because you could move things around, left click and drag if things were out of order. And then the note pages is where the presenter would want to write notes about the slide that they may not include on the slide. But I'm going to go back to normal view. Normal view is what I usually like. I don't like read view because it kind of makes it like a book. And you'll notice here in the view option, you also have an option to add a ruler. So if you wanted to kind of know where things are on the page, and you can even have guidelines to help you center objects. And then you have the option to make this colorful or grayscale, you know, depending if you're going to print this. But oftentimes, if you want to win the science fair project, you need to try to print this in color if possible. And then here in slideshow, I have from beginning or from current slide. So I could go here from beginning. This is my slideshow, and I would just left click or use my down arrow on the keyboard, and I can go from slide to slide. So remember, you left click in the middle of the slide, or you can use your down arrow keys usually to go from slide to slide. And then when we reach the end of the show, there's usually some kind of, I usually use the escape button, or there might be a button somewhere near the top that says end show, but if that doesn't show up, you can always use the escape key on your keyboard. So keep in mind, as I'm doing this presentation, I'm using Microsoft PowerPoint 2016, and I'm using a Windows 10 computer. So if you're using a slightly different version of PowerPoint or different operating system, some of the menus may look different, but they should be very similar. And then you'll see here, this is normal view, slideshow view. So those little icons at the very bottom here, these very small icons at the bottom, there's normal, slideshow, book view, and slideshow. And then I can also zoom in and zoom out. So this is just to magnify things. This doesn't actually change the slide. The sizes of the slide just magnifies or decreases the magnification. And then slideshow. And then I would just hit escape to get out of there. And let's talk about printing. So when you go to print, if you're printing this and you plan on putting it on your science board, then you want to definitely do full pages. But if this is just some notes that you need, like, if you had notes for a class project, you could do something like 3 slides or 2 slides if, you just needed some notes. But if you're going to print this and put it on your science board, you want to do full page slides, and you want to do in color, and of course you want to collate it, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And if you need to print all the slides, you would just print all the slides. If you only needed to print select slides, then you would, put 1-2, and then it's only going to print the first 2 slides. But if I want to print everything, I can just do print all slides. And then you'll see there's an option to add a header and footer. So if you wanted to add a head and footer, but most often you're not going to, so I'm just going to hit cancel on that one. And you'll notice that there is some white space. It's because of the size. So if I wanted to change that, I could go to the design menu and do slide size and do standard. And I'm going to ensure fit. And then if I go to print, you're going to see less of the white space there. But you can always cut it off with a pair of scissors, because this is a print preview, so this is showing you what it's going to look like if you were to print it. So remember, you can go to design, slide size, and make it standard when you go to print, or you could keep it on widescreen. It just is a matter of how much white space you want to have to cut off. So I'm going to go to standard, and I'm going to ensure fit. Actually, I'm wondering what happens if I do standard. Yeah, ensure fit. And then I go back to file and print, and then it's there. So I'm just going to briefly talk about animations for pictures. Even though when you're doing a science fair project, it really doesn't matter so much. So I'm going to go back to normal view by using that small tiny button there at the bottom. So let's just say, for example, I think I'm going to go back to widescreen. Yeah. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to have an animation for this one picture I inserted. I would select that picture, of course, and then I would go to the animation tab, and then you'll see there's a lot of different animations. I could do an entrance, an emphasis, an exit, but I'm going to go ahead and maybe do some sort of entrance, like a float in, and then I have the effects options. I can have it float down, so then it floats down. So as I was saying, for PowerPoint, for a regular PowerPoint you're going to present in class, the animations might be cool, but I would only do it on a few slides. I wouldn't do it on every single slide, because sometimes people get tired of it. I would save it for some special slides that you want to highlight, like maybe the beginning slide and the ending slide and maybe a slide in the middle. But I wouldn't go too crazy with the animations, depending on, the theme. So that's just a basic overview of animations. And then you'll see you could add even more animations, and there's the option to preview the animation. And you can decide, do it on a click or change it. So there's different ways you can, but you see here I have to highlight it. And I can even highlight a text box. So I don't know if I like that one. Oh, okay, that's nice. So you see here there's my animation too. So if I go back to preview, my lima bean picture and then my name. So I have 2 different animations there, and then I can do the animation pan, and that shows you the animations, and then it gives you the options for timing and if you want to remove it later. And you can do play all, and then there's your nice little animation. So as I was saying, for science fair projects, that won't really be helpful, but for future class projects where you have to do a presentation for class and you want to add some animation, at least now you have a basic idea of how you might do that. So just to review, remember, if you have any questions or want a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, remember you can email cybrary@broward.org with the subject of Science Fair PowerPoint. Please put a subject so I know what the email's about. If you need help with finding books and websites and databases and journal articles and images and things of that nature, you can visit our library catalog and search for physical books. You can also go to Ask a Librarian service. So when you go to our library website, broward.org/library, on the right side, you'll see an option for help. And then if you click on that help option, it'll give you the option for Ask a Librarian. And then you can actually chat or email or text a librarian. But I recommend for science fair questions to use chat or email, because those questions tend to be a little complex. So if you really want to get good response, it's better to chat with the librarian through instant messaging or to email the librarian. Text is better for questions that are simple, like what are the library hours? What's the address of main library, or what's the address or phone number for West Regional? Like, text is good for those simple basic questions, but if you're going to be doing research for your science fair project, I would recommend the chat or email features and Ask a Librarian. So that concludes this presentation. Thank you so much for listening to this recorded. Delete that, please. Thank you for listening to this recorded presentation. I hope that you find it helpful. And please let us know if you need assistance with anything. You can contact your local branch, or if you need a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and the class notes, then please email me at cybrary@broward.org with the subject line of Science Fair PowerPoint.